Imagine waking up one morning and receiving this message in your inbox from a Nazi. All Muslims will be removed from America and Europe, and you will all ultimately burn in hell for worshiping a demon god. I bet you're a pedophile. How would you react? Block him? Report him? Respond in kind? All of the above? The words we choose can have a profound impact. And on the internet, they can have an exponential impact. Social media companies are struggling and scrambling and spending millions of dollars trying to figure out, how do we combat cyberbullying? How do we stop online youth radicalization? And all the solutions that they come up with are all reactive. Once the bullying has already happened, they haven't found a way to prevent that from happening in the first place. And so the mantra goes, don't feed the trolls. But what if I told you that feeding the trolls is exactly how we can prevent and end cyberbullying from happening in the first place? See, I believe that words can resolve in minutes what wars cannot in a millennium. And that's not just a catchy line to start my talk, though I appreciate you guys noticing. It's something that I've discovered through a proven model I call collateral education. What collateral education teaches us is that we have an ability to not only influence the person that we're speaking with, but influence those who are watching the conversation unfold in real time. I was a novice of social media. I'm one of the last generations to graduate college without ever using social media, something that sounds incredible now. Back when I graduated college, Twitter didn't exist. Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat were all a far cry. MySpace was actually popular, to be fair, and Facebook was in its infancy. So the only reason why I even got on social media was because a friend of mine signed me up. You know, we all have that one friend that makes us do things we don't want to do. I had one of those. If you're not sure who that friend is in your circle, I've got news for you, unfortunately. And though I was a novice, the one golden rule of social media I was told was, don't feed the trolls, it only encourages them. But with a name like Qasim and a Twitter handle like Muslim IQ, that really wasn't an option. Fact is, I'm an immigrant to America. I'm a person of color. I'm a practicing Muslim. I'm also a lawyer. That doesn't help. But one way or another, trolls found a way to find me. I just knew that there simply had to be a better way. Because the reality was that not feeding the trolls wasn't doing anything to stop the anti-Muslim violence and Islamophobia that I'm seeing. In fact, it's had the opposite effect. Adding to the fact is that very few Americans know Muslims. According to Pew, 62% of Americans have never met a Muslim in their entire life. And there's a powerful lobby trying to keep it that way. Since 9/11, there have been over $200 million spent solely to create fear and propaganda against Muslims. And that same lobby that is funding these anti-Muslim articles and propaganda is also funding the white nationalist Nazi movements that we're seeing rise. So they're definitely connected. But to blame that would be a mistake as well. Even seemingly liberal publications like the New York Times, for example, last year published more articles showing cancer in a positive light than Islam. When your religion has a worse rap than cancer, you've got a lot of PR work to do. And it's had an impact. Butler University came out with a study just this month that shows that Muslims are the single most feared demographic in America. See, I believe there's a better way because I believe in a couple of sacred rules. I believe that the right to practice your faith peacefully should be a life choice, not a life sentence. I believe that people are inherently good and want to build bridges of understanding and tear down walls of bigotry. And I also believe that we must engage in this jihad of the pen together. Jihad means struggle. And we must struggle together against bigotry, but we can't resort to bigotry ourselves. Because what's happening now is that this online radicalization is having real-life impacts. The studies show that over the last 3 years, anti-Muslim hate crimes have increased over 300%. There have been more attacks, vandalisms, and fire bombings on mosques than at any point in American history. And contrary to the claim that this is the response to radical groups like Daesh or the Taliban, the data shows that this is a manufactured hatred of Muslims that spikes in the run-up to the Iraq War, the Ground Zero Mosque controversy, and every single presidential election. Americans are being manipulated to hate Muslims when the fear they should be towards bigotry in general. And this is manifesting in the highest offices of our land, Democrats and Republicans. This is not a partisan issue. The FBI reports that the single greatest terror threat to America right now is not ISIS, it's white supremacists. There's over 1,000 white supremacist hate groups in America right now. FBI studies show that white supremacists are radicalizing white male youth at a faster rate than ISIS is radicalizing Muslim youth. And this is happening right here in America. Things like Dylan Roof and his terrorist attack at the Emmanuel Church in South Carolina is just one example of those. But in 25 presidential debates, Republican and Democrat, white supremacy terrorism was mentioned 0 times. So-called radical Islamic terrorism was mentioned each and every single time. All this came to a head for me in January of 2016 as I struggled with this idea of how to respond to trolls in a way that's effective. I wanted to find a way to take hatred and turn it on its head, but I didn't want to legitimize hatred or bigotry. It was around then that I got this message from Nate the Nazi that I showed you a little bit earlier today. And my initial instinct was to block him. But I thought, let me do something different. Let me feed the troll. And it turns out that in feeding the troll, I stumbled upon something that I didn't expect. In a famous Seinfeld episode, George Costanza talks about accidentally discovering plutonium. Except whereas plutonium is used to create weapons of mass destruction and collateral damage, I discovered a way to create a weapon of mass construction and what I call collateral education. So I said, let's feed the troll. What's the worst that could happen? I responded, thinking that, he may never have met a Muslim. Come on, Nate. Do you know any Muslims personally? We're going to call him Nate the Nazi for this discussion. He responded, unfortunately, yes, you Muslims are sick, expletive freaks. So now I'd been slapped in the face proverbially twice by a Nazi, but I thought, let me chase this rabbit hole, see how far it actually goes. Where have you met Muslims? Can we dialogue without vulgar language and name-calling? And that was a deliberate act to try to take that hatred away from him and play on a level playing field. He responded, okay. I thought, all right, that's a victory. How can you consider Muhammad to be the holiest prophet of God? He killed lots of people, started wars, and he married children. So, though his message was full of misinformation and distortion and flat-out lies, the fact that he stopped cursing was a step in the right direction. I continued. There's a lot of misinformation about Prophet Muhammad on the internet. He never killed anyone. He only fought in self-defense. And he certainly never married a child. Now, one thing that trolls will do when they're stumped is resort to Google scholarship. Google scholars are the worst because you can go on Google and find anything to justify what you believe. The earth is flat. Vaccines cause autism. Aliens are secretly inhabiting the United States and taking over our government. That might be true, actually. So he resorted exactly to that. Yes, he did marry. Look at this Wikipedia article on Aisha. So anticipating this, I responded, it's Wikipedia. It's wrong. She was between 15 and 19. That was normal at the time. Do you know the legal age of marriage in America is 13 in most states? Or that Mary, mother of Jesus, was 13 and Joseph was 90, according to the Catholic Encyclopedia? How many people here know, for example, that in the United States, since the year 2000, there have been 200,000 child marriages, some as young as 11, sanctioned by the church and given judicial decree as well? Nate the Nazi didn't know this either, so he tried to change the subject. No, 1,000 years ago, he said, Muhammad was forcing his religion onto people. Again, notwithstanding the fact that Prophet Muhammad lived 1,400 years ago, this was still more information and wrong. So I responded with facts. Nate, Prophet Muhammad did no such thing. The Quran commands Muslims to protect all houses of worship. Instead of Google, read the Quran. I can send you a biography of Prophet Muhammad. So Nate shifted again. Would you invite millions of poor white Christians to come live in your richest Muslim countries? Notwithstanding that this is exactly what happened during World War II, when Europeans fled and went to Muslim countries for refuge, I responded, yes. In fact, Prophet Muhammad himself invited Christians to worship as they wished in his own mosque. He wrote a letter to the St. Catherine's Monastery at Sinai promising to defend Christians against all that they hate. And then, just for emphasis, I sent him the whole letter. Nate the Nazi responded, okay, I guess there's good and bad people in every demographic. And my heart was elated for just a moment until he added, but I still think white people should have their own homogeneous living spaces. That can happen with millions of Muslims moving to Europe. I figured I'd gone this far and I'd broken down this many obstacles, maybe I can keep going one step further. And I said, yes, every community has good and bad, but all humans are equal. I'm brown, you're white, but I see you as an equal human being. This is what Islam teaches. Can we work together, Nate? What do you say? I felt like I'd given him a really strong argument for us to work together. Nate didn't respond after several hours, so I asked him, Nate? And this was my response. You are no longer permitted to send messages to this user. Nate the Nazi had blocked me. So as I sat there wondering, did I just waste all this time? I got another message from Dave the Dude. Dave the Dude said, I've been following your page and I had a question. I hope you don't mind. I'm a Christian and I've heard Islam teaches Muslims to hate Christians. Is that true? And it suddenly occurred to me that Nate the Nazi and Dave the Dude had very similar questions, but they were coming at it from polar opposites. And so in a flash, I thought, hold on a second, there's something here. I took my entire conversation with Nate the Nazi and I pasted it on Facebook. Copy-paste, just to see what would happen. The conversation reached 125,000 people. And the responses I got, this is a cross-section. Janet said, very engaging. Some commentators said they wish that Nate had said to you, you're right, but this isn't the movies. You offered a bridge, a chance to connect as equals, an inspiring read. Martin responded, I think he blocked you because you were making him think. Very surreal. Courage, we are not alone in this struggle. Struggle means jihad. We are not alone in this jihad against bigotry. And this concept has since gone viral. I found ways to repeat this over and over again. When a troll tweeted me, Islam is cancer, I responded with Collateral education saying, cancer? No. The Quran was revealed in Ramadan 6:10, which was then in January or February. Thus, Islam is Aquarius. It reached 40,000 retweets with 7 million people responding to it. A white supremacist DM'd me that where's the Christian version of ISIS and every other religion asking for a friend? I responded with Collateral education with a list of terrorism done by so-called Christian groups. It was retweeted 80,000 times and reached 9 million people. Another person responded to me and said, go home, we don't want you here. I responded, you're wrong, I'll prove it. Twitter, retweet if you want me here as an American Muslim. It was retweeted 112,000 times and reached 10 million people. His account on Twitter got suspended. And his employer reached out to me to apologize that their employee had promoted bigotry against me. And then, when a certain elected official tweeted about so-called radical Islamic terrorism, I responded, actually, refugees have killed 0 Americans. There have been 150,000 Americans killed by guns. But we have 0 gun bans and 3 refugee bans. Stop fear-mongering. I got double the retweets as the president, and it reached 13 million people. You heard me mention earlier that my conversation with Nate the Nazi reached 125,000 people. Now, these conversations are reaching over 100 million people per month. That means that by the end of the year, I'll have reached over 1 billion people with Collateral education. This isn't to boast, but it's to toast to the fact that people want to work together against bigotry. People are desirous of finding a way to build a bridge. We just need to create the avenue for that to happen. I mentioned that online hate leads to real-life violence, and this is the best part about Collateral education. It can de-radicalize, and it's proven. I woke up one morning not too long ago to find out that someone had shot at my mosque 30 times. Fortunately, nobody was killed, but imagine for a moment you find out that somebody has shot at your place of worship. The federal government wanted to put him away for as long as possible. They wanted to give him a 14-year sentence. We went to the judge and said, "Your Honor, we want you to forgive him." And the judge looked at us like we were crazy. But ultimately, after much lobbying to the judge, he listened to us and gave him only 6 months instead of 14 years. And now, he's become one of our strongest allies. "I owe them," he says, "convicted mosque shooter embraces Islam." He's still a Roman Catholic and a devout Roman Catholic, but he's become one of our biggest advocates to fight back against bigotry and hatred. He admits, "I was radicalized on Facebook, but because of this opportunity to dialogue, collateral education, we found ways to work together." Imagine if every person in this room responded to bigots not by blocking them, not by simply reporting them, but trying to engage them with civility, with compassion, and with education. Think about the exponential impact each one of us can have on a mass scale. For that to happen, you need three things. You need humility to re-educate yourself on Islam, because obviously the media is doing a terrible job. You need the courage to engage in trolls and let them know that this is not their narrative, this is our narrative. And you need a resource to learn what Islam actually teaches. The first two you control, the last one I can help you with. We launched a True Islam Education campaign to do exactly that. And we've had over 16,000 people since sign on as a Muslim ally to stand against bigotry and to combat trolls. When it comes down to it, I still get the same hate messages and death threats that I got before. But now my messages of love and compassion are infinitely more. This is my invitation to you. Don't sit by the sidelines. Engage in collateral education. Forsake that golden rule of don't feed the trolls. Go on, feed the trolls, and let's win the hearts with collateral education. Thank you.